Hey everybody, Brian and Leslie Fathery here, the Unbreakable podcast, brought to
Woohoo.
you by Fathery Family Ministries and the Unbreakable Ministries, just for you, so you can be unbreakable in your life. We're glad you're here. It's the second week of April. We are
Yes.
talking about forgiveness is the theme for the month,
Mm-hmm.
but we're talking about things that you get to forgive. So we're taking a little bit of a different angle. So we're not just talking about ooey gooey forgiveness. We're talking about practical things that come from spiritual happenings
Uh-huh.
that help you learn how to forgive. And last week, we're going to work with you on actually how to forgive.
Right.
The whole day, that whole podcast is going to be all about forgiveness and
Mm-hmm.
how to choose it and how to live a lifestyle
Right.
of forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
I thought you could.
No,
The way
just
she breathed, I thought she had
sorry.
something to say.
Little
Little.
hiccupy thing there.
No,
It's
it's
okay.
all good. It's all fine. So today's topic, because last week we talked about strife. We talked about how all evil comes with strife.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about how to discern that, how to break that in your life,
Mm-hmm.
how to pay attention to it in your life. So we gave you some practical
Right.
guidance for that as well. And here's the thing: when you have strife in your life, and I'm going to just not really recap it, you're going to want to hear the forgiveness part at the end of the month,
Mm-hmm.
because forgiveness is one of the most powerful tools
Yes.
over everything we're talking about
Mm-hmm.
last week, this week, and next week.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the single most powerful spiritual tools in your. I mean, if you're carrying 6 shooters, it could be all 6 bullets.
Right.
It is a powerful tool that we don't use very often.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we may say, I forgive you, and not really mean it. And I'm getting ahead to the last week, so we'll stop there for now. But it is a powerful tool. So you're going to want to stick around for week number 4 here at the end of April, um, because that week will help you um, overcome all these
Right.
things that we're talking about.
Yeah.
Next week, we're going to talk about, I'm not telling you, come next week and listen. Ha!
He caught himself. That's really what that was.
No, I was being honoring. I did it on purpose. So anyway, um, just know that we have even deeper answers coming in week 4. We're going to give you some answers along the way,
Right.
but we're going to go a little bit
Go a little deeper
deeper dive on week 4
Yep.
of that. So thank you for being here. If you would like the video, like the podcast, share it,
Subscribe.
subscribe to it. You know, do the
Do all the
LS,
things.
do all the LSS things.
Mm-hmm.
If you're on YouTube, you can hit the little bell so it'll give you notification when every
Yep.
video goes live. Um, and it's ready for you when they premiere. So anyway, that all those things would be great for you to do. We're going to put the shameless plug, one shameless plug in the beginning today before we get into it, and one at the end. We're in the middle of a capital campaign. We're raising funds to better our equipment, better our audio and our video equipment. Also raising funds to take care of some publishing, editing, and advertising issues that we have for our ministry. We have a second book that I've written, and Leslie's book is already out there, and we'll shamelessly plug that at the end. But my book is ready to be published, and we just need someone to help us make that process happen.
Yes.
So if you want to help us with that, that'd be great. You can go to also, if you're on the podcast and you're on the podpoint.com, the Unbreakable Family Podcast, there
Mm-hmm.
is a share button, but then there's also a donation button.
Mm-hmm.
If you hit that, that'll take you directly to our Give, Send, Go account,
Right.
to the campaign that we're having. For those of you who are not on that podcast, you can go to givesendgo.com, the Unbreakable Family,
Right.
and you'll find us on there. So,
And we appreciate all the,
oh my
the
goodness,
support that you give us.
absolutely,
Thank you so much.
yes. This is only the second time that we've done this in the last 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so the last time we're raising more money this time we did last time.
Yep.
But we had donors help us in the first campaign that we did, and that helped us do some things, and this will help even more.
Yep.
So that's a shameless plug to start today. So with that said, let's get into today. I can't talk. Let's get into today's topic. Today we're going to talk to you about the spirit of offense, not a fence, not
Not with a gate in it.
not with a gate and chain link or wood. We're talking about offense, being offended. Have you ever been offended? My hand's up.
Yeah.
I've been offended.
Yep.
I've been offended just recently.
Mm-hmm.
And offense isn't necessarily a big thing. It can be a little thing. I was offended because someone didn't do something the way I thought they should do it.
Oops.
I thought it should go from the left to the right, and they went from the right to the left. And that's not exactly what the problem was, but you get the point. And I'm like, how dare they go from the left to the right when it should be the right to the left? But that's how offense works. And so, if you've been church hurt, you were a victim to the spirit of offense.
Yep. Do you know what the Bible says about offense?
Go ahead.
It says in Proverbs 18:19 that a brother offended is harder to be won over than a strong city, and their contentions separate them like bars of a castle.
Wow.
So offense is like a serious thing.
Yeah.
Very serious. The Lord doesn't want us to be there.
I'm going to put this on. We're talking about family and marriage, but we're going to put this on the church for a minute. Have you ever seen people once they get offended in a church? Nothing satisfies them.
Nope.
That scripture comes true right there. They're harder to win back than a strong city. Nothing comes back because of them. Nothing happens because they get offended, and then everything, the music, the air conditioning, the hard or soft seats, the preaching,
the carpet,
too much light, not enough light, too hot, too cold. Parking is horrible. I got to drive an extra 3 minutes to get to the building.
Right.
They didn't start exactly on time. They didn't finish exactly on time. Oh my word, they get offended over it. We know of a church in another state that it's been 20 plus years ago, and that church was growing. They plateaued. They started with like about 80 people, and they plateaued at about 250, and then it exploded. They were over 500 people going to this church. That's a good sized church. And so they were too big for the facility that they were in, so they built a new building.
Yep.
Built a new building.
Yep.
Everything going great until they couldn't decide on the color of the carpet. Half the church wanted whatever color, another half wanted another color. And the pastor and the leadership team decided on the color and lost half their church. Why? They got offended that their color wasn't chosen. And they left their church. Had nothing to do with how good the preaching was, whether it was true or right or wrong. Had nothing to do with how good the music was. Didn't have anything to do with anything except their personal preference.
Right.
And they got offended because they chose blue over red or red over blue or whatever it was. Ridiculous, but that's how offense works.
Because the spirit of offense is the master of making mountains out of molehills.
Absolutely right.
Beware, beware, beware.
Yeah, I mean, now I'm going to flip it on the other side. I'm a pastor, and I have been the victim of people being offended at me.
Right. Yeah.
Not just once, but multiple times. I've had people get offended at something I said or something I did. Sometimes I don't even know what it was I said or did. And I try to have a conversation with them, and it didn't matter. It won't change.
No.
Or they perceive that I said something a certain way, and they took it a way that was not meant, and then they get offended at me, and the next thing you know, they're leaving the church. I even did a sermon on the spirit of offense and how people in the church get offended.
Right.
And if you watch them when they get offended, they go from sitting in the front row, second row, to the middle of the church, to the back, to all the way to the back row, and then they move out the back door and they're gone. And we had right after I preached that, we had a couple get offended at me. And we watched them over about a 5 to 6 week period do that very thing. And it was really ironically funny, not good.
Yeah.
I approached them like, "Oh, we're good." I said, "No, you're not. I'm watching you.
I'm watching you move.
I'm watching you back off. I'm watching you. You're quitting in incremental motions." And I said, "It's not good." And they just, "Oh, we're good." I said, "No, you're not." No. But that's not. I mean, they're adults. I can't change them. I tried to win them, but they're harder to win because they're offended.
Right.
Even tried to find out what they were mad about, and they wouldn't tell me. Nope, we're all good. It's like, okay. And I had a brand new Christian who was there, probably their third or fourth sermon, they heard me teach this. And they're like, I'm watching so-and-so and so-and-so, this couple. I said, yeah. Are they doing what you taught? I said, looks like. I said, that's good discernment, son. Looks like. And he's like, oh, I just wondering. I'm new to all this. And a brand new baby Christian could see it, and
Can
they
see
couldn't
it,
see it
yeah.
themselves. Because
Right.
when you're offended, you can't see anything.
Mm-mm.
Everything becomes there's we were just looking up before we got on here. It makes you petty.
Yes.
When you're offended,
Yep.
it makes you, not the
Petty.
person you're offended with, it makes you petty.
Mm-hmm.
It makes you pick on. And I'm
And
not
it changes your mindset.
absolutely,
And makes your mindset and your emotions be negative.
absolutely
It turns everything. What's what he was been talking about how they find all the negative
right.
in everything.
Yeah,
Because when you're offended, it just changes your mindset to a negative mindset.
yeah,
It clouds your conscience.
yeah.
You can't even see that you're doing something right or wrong
That's
because
right.
you're so offended.
That's right.
And your judgment on how to do things or why you're doing things or who to do things with, it just gets totally skewered
Yeah,
because you can't
yeah,
focus on anything correctly because that spirit of offense has come in and has twisted how you're thinking
yeah,
and twisted how you're believing.
yeah. And this goes back to what we were talking about last week with spirit of strife. That sometimes you need to have an honest, hard conversation
Yeah.
about what offended you.
Mm-hmm.
I've had people who got offended me, and this has only happened a couple times. They got offended me, and they came to me and said,
Yeah.
"You did blah blah blah,"
Mm-hmm.
and it hurt my feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, "Okay," and I'm like, "Let's talk about that." And once it was their own problem,
Yeah.
and once I needed to apologize
Mm-hmm.
because the way I approached something, I probably just didn't make it clear enough, and so
Mm-hmm.
I took it on me, and we came to
Right.
an agreement. We were doing some ministry things. I was building some teams, and we were we had two teams that were very redundant, and so we were combining those teams.
Right.
And so, but I couldn't have two leaders running one team.
Mm-hmm.
So I talked with both leaders, and the one leader really wanted to do something else anyway. So I'm like, great. And so let's get you doing that, and let's get it to other. Well, the person that I talked to about wanting to do something else actually felt like I was pushing them out.
Yeah.
Wasn't the case. And they were probably the more experienced leader of the two people that we were looking at.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I went to them first to see what they wanted to do, and
Right.
willing to have the conversation with whoever. And like, great, you go ahead and do that, and then we'll go over here and do this with this other person.
Mm-hmm.
But they got offended at me. Didn't tell me, told someone else, one of my other leaders who told me. So I went and approached them because I'm a confrontational person in that way. And we had a hard conversation. I ended up apologizing to this person, like, I am so sorry. That was not my intent. Here was my intent.
Mm-hmm.
You said you wanted to do that. Do you still want to do that? Well, yeah. I said, I'm trying to empower you to do that.
Yeah.
Let me help you
Yeah.
do that.
Right.
But you can't do both
Mm-hmm.
because they're a volunteer. They're not paid staff. They're a
Right.
volunteer. So I'm trying to help them accomplish what they want to accomplish. And they're like, oh, the little light bulb went on, even though it's not what I said. I apologize, probably unnecessarily, but I'm going to do that because that's what you do to beat offense.
Right.
You come to a place, 3 words that are really difficult words in an English language. There's 2 sets of words that are most difficult. Actually, 3. I love you is hard.
Mm-hmm.
I need help. Oh my gosh, is that hard?
Yeah.
And then I am sorry.
Yep.
Those 3 sets of 3 words are probably the 3 hardest sets of words in the American language.
Yeah.
To say I need help, to say I love you,
Mm-hmm.
and to say I'm sorry.
Yep.
Those 3 phrases are probably the most difficult phrases out there.
Yep.
But if you want to overcome the spirit of offense, you better learn how to say I'm sorry.
Yes.
And either way, on either side of it.
Yeah.
Because offense and it locks you up.
Yes.
It locks your life up.
Occasionally, I know that I've experienced where
Yeah.
I feel like I have an offense towards someone and I can't quite put my finger on why do I feel offended at this person.
Yeah.
And so sometimes you do need to go to that person and discuss what's
Yeah.
going on, or go to your pastor and discuss, this is how I'm feeling, but I can't quite figure out
Yeah.
why I'm feeling this way. But get prayer, get insight, and fix it. Don't just let it fester. Don't just let it sit there and your reactions towards that person start to be
Yeah.
negative, and you start to have bad interactions,
Yeah.
or just bad feelings towards them. Don't let that fester inside.
Absolutely not. Now I'm going to take this and let's put it into marriage. We had it in the church. Now we're going to take it into marriage and
Yes.
family.
Right.
You got offended by your spouse, your husband or your wife. You have a perceived offense.
Yep.
They didn't spend enough intimate time with you.
And I want to say that perceived is the word.
It is.
Most offense is not an actual something that happened.
Right.
Most offense is perceived.
Absolutely.
It's what you think they said or what you think they did
Or didn't.
do.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's not actually real most of the time. Although an offense can be something real.
Yeah.
And I'm not discounting that. I'm just saying be sure you watch that you are,
Yeah, absolutely.
you know, it's what you're perceiving as what they're saying, which is why it's so important to make sure, you know, you're saying this to me. Is this what you're really saying?
Yeah.
Is this what you really mean? And make sure it's clear so that you can avoid the offense.
Yeah. I'll give you an example. Yesterday, I think it was yesterday, one or 2 days ago, my wife and I completely rearranged our sleeping quarters.
Yesterday.
It was yesterday. I was right the first time. It just seems like 2 days ago.
Yeah.
So we spent a large part of our day moving things around. You know, big pieces, small pieces, fitting things in because it's not a really big space. And so we're trying to fit all the things that we have. So when you rearrange it, it takes on a whole new geometric dynamic.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to do all that. And so I'm talking to her and I'm saying, do this one thing. And she's like, no, do this. I'm like, that's exactly what I just said. That is not what you just said. So that is what I said. I didn't say it exactly how you said it, but that's what I said. No, it's not. Yes, it really easily we could have got offended at each other. Really
But we
easily.
stopped.
We did.
And we said, okay, we mean the same thing. We're just going to move forward.
Yeah.
We don't have to be right. We
No.
don't have to be the one who says it the right way.
Right. Who says it the right way? I love that.
No, we don't have to be right. So we can just move on. We can let it go and we can move on.
Yeah.
And strong personalities, I'm going to warn you that you have the hardest time with all of this.
Because you think you're always right.
You think you're always right. And you want to always be right. And you don't want to be wrong.
And you're not always right.
Yeah.
You can be wrong.
Right.
It's just part of the deal. I know it's hard to grasp.
We are actually both very strong personalities.
Very much so.
We really have to pay attention that what we're doing and how we're saying it and what we're doing towards the other one. And we don't always do it right, but we try.
Yeah. You know, we're not trying to say we're perfect here. We're just saying we know from experience. Yeah. I'm going to tell you when the spirit of, and it is a spirit, when the spirit of offense comes, don't take it.
Yes.
You have a choice. Don't be offended.
Right.
I say this all the time now. I didn't do this when I was younger. I used to get offended way more than I get offended now. Mm-hmm. Way more. You know, little things. I come home just fuming. Yep. Just mad. And this stuff would offend me. And it would wreck my night. It would wreck my next day. Yeah. It would wreck my week. Yeah.
Because he held on to it.
I'm from a good line of grudge holders.
Pitbull grudge holders.
Grudge holders walk in a spirit of offense.
Yes, they do.
In
the New Testament, Jesus tells us that we're supposed to let it drop.
Yeah.
We're supposed to let it go.
Yeah.
And let it drop and just leave it. And so what you got to do, you have to say no. Don't be offended.
I'm from a long line of people who take offense and keep it for forever. Yeah. I'll give you an example. This is going to be a fun example of offense. Back in the 80s, 40 years ago, right? We're from Illinois. Mm-hmm. I'm a sports guy. Mm-hmm. My college team is the Fighting Illini. Mm-hmm. I'm an Illini guy. Well, there's a guy from another school that caused a problem for the Illini. Mm-hmm. He lied about them, and he caused them to get sanctions because he made up a story. The NCAA investigated him. They found out that wasn't true, but they're like, well, but we're going to make up these. We're going to give them sanctions anyway for these other. They just kind of opened the door and said we're going, and they hit him with some sanctions. It lasted like 2 years. This back in the mid '80s. Yeah. This other guy, the guy who lied, goes on to become a coach of some really good teams. He's actually a really good coach. Yeah. But if you're an Illini fan, you think he's a snake because of what he did to your team and your school. So I'm watching the NCAA March Madness, and he's coaching one of the teams in the March Madness.
Yep.
And I'm like, I hope he loses. She's like,
Yep.
what? Said, I'm not a big fan of college anyway, but I'm really not a fan of that guy because this is what he did. And my wife's like, let it go.
You're gonna let it go?
Let it go much. Like, as a Christian and a pastor, I should. As an Illini fan, I can't.
Which is to let it go.
Which is ridiculous. But I'm telling you, you can hold on to it forever. That's a 40-year grudge that people from the state of Illinois have against this guy, not unrighteously, because the guy's a jerk and he's done some things that are wrong, but you still, their character, their integrity, their issue towards you does not change the fact that you need to get over the offense.
Right.
Because it's not about them.
Right.
It's about you. I'm thinking about, I'll save this story for next week because it's more pertinent.
So what I want to say then is that pride and insecurities about yourself and maybe even just I always think of 1 Corinthians 13 where it talks about that love is not touchy. It's not prickly. It's not easily offended. And so if you're not full of love, if you're not walking in love, if you don't have the love of God operating inside of you, you are more likely to be offended. Pride brings offense, is something that helps you pick up offense because you think you're all that. And so who are they to do that to me? And so that's a bad thing. And then insecurities definitely open the door for offense because you're just not secure about who you are anyway. And then they went and said that about me, and then you have an offense, and you just kind of nurture it, because sometimes offenses are angry, and sometimes they're like hurtful. And sometimes you're sad over them or whatever, and it's not the same. There's lots of different kinds of offense, but they're rooted in things that we are not secure in or we're not good in. And it's our own character flaws that need to be worked on and nurtured and fixed so that we don't nurture offenses.
If you're a control freak, you are susceptible to be offended. Because sometimes it comes because you didn't get to control the circumstance of the situation.
They didn't do it your way.
You're like, well, I got a better way. And you might.
Right.
You just might. You may actually have the right answer, but it doesn't mean you have to get offended.
Right.
And so that's because offense, even though it's a spirit and it's almost seductive in how it approaches people, and it woos you, and it comes after you, but you have a choice.
Right.
No matter what, you have a choice to be offended or not.
In our family, especially my girls, they like to tell me that it's not my circus or my monkey. So instead of getting offended about something, they just let it go. It's not my circus or my monkey. I'm not going to deal with that because then I'll get offended, and I don't want to be offended. And so we work really hard at not being offended in our family.
And some of the deepest offenses come from family. They come from people that you love the most, care about the most, be it at work, at home, church, whatever. That's why people, when they get offended at church, leave the church because they can't stand being around the people that they love. Because they got offended by them. Same thing. That's why divorces happen. They get offended over something. It's not the only reason. That's one of the reasons. It's the same reason why children don't come back home to parents because they're offended at something their parents said or did, or they perceived that they said or did.
They tried to control my life. The whole thing.
Yeah.
So the enemy is once again coming at us with another spirit to steal, kill, and destroy from us.
Absolutely right.
He wants to ruin our life. He wants to cripple us in our life. And that's exactly what being offended cripples you. It doesn't necessarily cripple that other person you're offended at. It cripples you. And more of that will be discussed at the end of the month. But watch out for the enemy bringing that. In Proverbs 4:23, it tells us, above all else, guard your heart, for out of it flow the issues of life. If you have allowed offense to come into your life, then that's what's going to flow out of your heart. You don't want to do that. And then it's going to affect everything else that you do. It also tells us in Ephesians 6 to put on the whole armor of God and be covered so that the enemy can't get at us. And I think those are excellent points of action.
They are.
To do.
They are. One last story to help you, because offense will just linger for a really long time. again, mid 80s. I'm in college. I'm young. I'm brash. I'm cocky. I have very few filters, and I'm go to college and I play football in college. And my freshman year, there's this guy, big, big dude. I mean, made me look small, and big dude. And he was talking about how much weight he lifted, and I'm like, well, that's pretty good. What do you mean pretty good? I said, I I've done more than that. He's like, what? I said, I've done more than that, and so I said, what? I said, I can prove it. Let's go to the weight room, and I can go do more than what you said you did was your best, and I could do quite a bit more than that. And so we go. I do. He's mad. He gets offended, and I was not nice to him. I mean, I was a jerk to this guy because he started out being a jerk to me. I was a jerk to him, and even though we were teammates, I just wasn't nice to him. So he was a couple years ahead of me. So he graduates ahead of me, 2-3 years ahead of me. Fast forward to my 20th, 25th anniversary. Go back to homecoming. I don't go all the time. Went back to homecoming, and here comes this guy. I'm like, oh, cool. We can have a conversation. He's still mad.
Yep.
He's still mad. And here's the sad thing. He went on, married a beautiful woman, had a lovely family, played semi-professional football. He became an alderman in a big city.
Yeah.
He had a successful life.
And he was mad about this one little
but
thing.
He was still mad at me. 20-some. He goes, remember we had... He's mad. He's holding the offense.
Yeah.
So I looked at him. I'm like, man, I apologize. And I apologized. I said, man, I've grown up since then. I'm not that same guy. I have grown up, and I admit that I was not nice to you. But I didn't know any better back then. But he still didn't let it go. So I'm sitting there talking to him. I'm looking over at Leslie, and we have like a little head nod and look like, help me, save me. And so she came over and was like, you don't mind, just take him away. And I left. He was, I don't know if he's still mad about it or not. But he was so mad 20 plus years later at something he should have let go of a long
Brian's
time.
soft answer and
Didn't help.
apology didn't help. So, wow.
Because
he really had it deep.
He had a deep rooted offense. And so you can't do that because it like Leslie talked about, skewed the lens that you look at. He'd had a successful life, a very successful life, but that one thing was something that just bugged him all along, and drove him all along. And I'm like, that's ridiculous. We were kids. You know, I'm 17, 18, 19 years old. He's probably 20, 21 at the time. We were kids, and wow, don't let the spirit of offense rule your life. Don't let it do it, and do what she said. Put on the whole armor, and because he's come to steal, kill, and destroy. Put on the whole armor, and your mind is a big part of that. Put on the mind of Christ, and when you get the mind of Christ, it sets you free from offense. And that is an action.
It says in the word to cast down vain imagination.
Yes.
So when things come up in your mind and you're thinking thoughts that you know are not godly, they're not healthy, they're not positive, all those things, then you can just bind those thoughts up and cast them out in the name of Jesus. And once again, we have a way to overcome those things because Jesus said we have authority over those things.
Absolutely. All right. That's, I think, it for today, except for shameless plug number 2. Go to the unbreakablefamily.com and pick up the book that my wife has written and published. It's called The Family Manual, a practical guide to raising a Christian family. Mother's Day.
That sounds kind of boring. I just want to say
But it's not.
I do want to tell you that it's full of all kinds of stories from our life raising our kids, and I hope that it's not boring. But it's sharing a whole lot of our life and what we did with our children to raise them and how we did things in our marriage. And so.
Yeah, my wife was very vulnerable in this book. She's very transparent in this book. And she shares things from her heart in this book, things that the Holy Spirit has revealed to her and showed her and taught her. We started out, I think, last week talking about we take a very practical approach to our spirituality. That's why it says a practical guide to raising, because you don't need a bunch of spiritual mumbo gumbo. You don't need a bunch of hype. You don't need us to, tell you that your kids, when you do this, are going to grow up and be gazillionaires. You don't need all that. What you need is practical guidance when you're raising a kid and they're throwing a fit or they're acting out, or you're having struggles with them, this book will help you have principles put in place,
Yeah.
so that you can make it through the experience of raising your children.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife raised 5 children,
Yep.
one with special needs, and she's raised 5 children. She homeschooled them. She's a 26-year expert in homeschooling, and all of those kind of things. That those things come through and are taught in that book. So go get that book. Mother's Day is coming soon, so you're going to want to go grab that so you can get that to you, gift it to any of the mothers that you know.
Mm-hmm.
Again, you can go to the unbreakablefamily.com and go into the store and get the book, and have that and have fun with that. And again, thank you for being with us. Be sure to like, share, subscribe on YouTube, hit the bell so you know when the next video goes live. We appreciate you being with us. We love you. We pray for you. We're expecting God to do great things for you this year and beyond.
Yep.
Anything else to add to that?
Yep.
No? All right. So with that said, once again, we love you, praying for you, and we will talk to you soon.